Hello, my name is Helen and welcome. Today I am going to be doing my eyeshadow palette collection and declutter video. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. My eyeshadow palette collection has grown exponentially this year. I believe I counted 83 palettes. Now, I have some caveats, and that is, I believe 5 of these palettes, maybe 6 of them, are actually palettes that I made myself. So I depotted and then added eyeshadows to them, and I'm going to leave them that way. I actually glued 3 of them into place, so when we get to those, of course, I'll point them out. I Franken paletted a couple of things. If you have watched my new the new makeup into my collection video that I posted in November, or my video where I swatch some of the Electrum Cosmetics palettes, you will know that I've kind of changed how I do my makeup and what I do that with. If you've watched any of my Get Ready With Me's, you'll probably have seen that, witnessed that over this year. I just haven't been as into makeup this year. I kind of got back into it during the summer. I got really into Sea Beauty, and so I have a lot of things from Sea Beauty that I tried out. I wanted to try some new things, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let's just go ahead and do the easy ones, because these are the ones I know I'm going to compare pretty much everything else to, and that is my palettes from Electrum Cosmetics. This is a brand I discovered at the end of last year. I have heard about Electrum, but I never purchased anything myself, and so I actually bought the Sea Witch palette. It looks like this. Now, the mattes in this palette are not that good. They're fine and workable, but they're not perfect. But the shimmers in here, of course, are absolutely beautiful. Electrum has my very favorite shimmer formula. I have very hooded eyes, and this is the best shimmer formula I've ever used. I love it. So these are definite keeps. This is the Midnight Moth. This is the newest one to my collection. It looks like this. The mattes in this one are actually really good. I really like these and recommend them. And then we have these two, the Heartbreaker 2, which is a 9-pan multi-chrome, and the Celestial Witch, which is also a 9-pan multi-chrome. I'm keeping both of these as well. So these 4 are kind of the penultimate shimmer formula in my collection. Now, as far as matte formula, that would have to be these palettes from Narimi. These are ones I discovered back in the summertime, and I've absolutely fallen in love with these. The shimmer formula on these is absolutely beautiful, but it's the matte formula I love. I don't know the names of these ones. I think this is Purple Deadwood, maybe. This one's absolutely beautiful. I'm keeping that one. Then we have this one. I think this one is Twilight Dusk, maybe. Again, I'm very sorry. These don't have the names on them, so I don't know. I do know that this one's Cicada. This is the all matte one. Love this one. Again, I'm a shimmer person. And this is the Giant Spider. This is the Exotic Sheep. A couple of these I do know the name of. This is the Fireflies in the Dark Night. This one I'd actually lost for about a month or so, but I have found it, and I just really like this. These 2 purple shades are stunning. Again, I just love the mattes. I believe this green one is called Jackdew. And then we have this blue one, which maybe I don't know, maybe this one's something Twilight, Blue Twilight maybe. And then I think this one might be Amber Deadwood. I don't know. Anyway, so that means so far I'm keeping these 9 and these 4 from Electrum. So that's 13 palettes so far. So I need to keep that in mind. These are my favorites. Like, nothing beats Electrum shimmers, and I love the mattes in these. So I do need to keep that in mind going forward. I don't know that I'm going to be decluttering a whole lot, but I am trying to only keep things I know I'm going to use. So then we'll go ahead and do this one. This is the Anthemy Butterfly palette. It looks like this. I kind of bought this at the same time as a couple of the Narimi palettes, and it is very similar to those palettes. This has some deeper shades in it, but the shimmers they have exact dupes in the Narimi palettes. Not in like, there's not one Narimi palette that is the butterfly palette, but it is very similar to those palettes. But I think I'm going to keep this one because I do like the color story, and the packaging is beautiful, and it's new to me, and I spent money on it, so I'm going to keep it. Okay, so this one is Dragonfly, something from Choi's Beauty. This is also a C Beauty brand. This I kind of bought on a whim, and I shouldn't have. I just wanted to, this summer I really wanted to try a bunch of new brands, and I kind of regret that because this is exactly the same as again, some Narimi palettes, the green one and the blue one specifically. Even these two shimmers kind of I can dupe in the Narimi palettes if I wanted to, so I think I'm going to declutter this one. Then we have the Sorcerer. I have these 3 palettes from Fantasy Cosmetica. So I have Sorcerer, Rogue, and then Druid. And I had actually depotted Druid, and I depotted the palette, and I really messed up the outer packaging. I had thought that I could salvage it or whatever, so I actually ended up, I decluttered a bunch of my single shadows and gave them to my sister, and I just bought another. I don't know, I kind of regret repurchasing this. As you can see, I have used this, and I just wish that I'd bought one of the other palettes I was interested in. I was just really interested in replacing what I already felt like I had, but I depotted this originally for a reason, and I think this is just a lesson I needed to learn in money. Other than I don't know, like, this formula is different than the other palette I had, and I just bought these palettes a year ago, maybe more than a year ago, so I don't really know what that's about. But the formula in this, it's better than it had been. Like, these shimmers are definitely better than they were. So yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think I'm gonna go ahead and keep it because I did go through the trouble of repurchasing it. I don't know that that's the best decision to make, but I really love the packaging. That's the problem. I really love the packaging. I kind of want to make my own palette with this because I'm not in love with this color story. It's inspiring, but it's not something I'm going to reach for. So I'm going to keep this for now, but I'm going to keep in mind if I don't use it, I have this color story. Specifically, I think it's very similar to the Midnight Moth from Electrum. So, I mean, yeah, I think that those pretty much have the same vibes. I don't know, it's just, I love the packaging so much. So, and I hate that I spent however much money this was. I should have just bought it secondhand. Honestly, I don't know. I'm gonna try depotting this one more time, and if it doesn't work out, I'll just give it to my sister. So that's in my collection, but not really. I think the same thing it was last year. And then the Sorcerer palette is one, I'm going to keep it. Again, I haven't really used this year, but this is still a color story that is so beautiful and unique to my collection. I don't really have anything like this in what I'm keeping so far. The shimmers aren't really as beautiful as some of the other things, but the mattes in this, those bright pinks and this periwinkle blue are just too magical not to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one. And the same thing I think with the Rogue palette. This is just a color story I love so much. I think I'm gonna have, I would have trouble parting with this. Sure, I probably have this exact color story, especially in the Narimi palettes, but I don't know, like I think this is something that I would miss having in my collection, and I just find the color story so inspiring, so I'm gonna keep it. So that is a keep of 16 and a declutter of 1.5. So we're not off to the best start, but you know, this isn't about getting rid of things. This is just about being responsible with the makeup I do have in my collection. So I'm gonna go ahead, I don't know, let's go here to these Blend Bunny that are staring me in the face. So I have the Lure palette. I still really love this palette. I still love Blend Bunny's matte formula, and I hate to get rid of this. I love the shimmers in this palette. I'm going to keep this one for sure. But the Mashina palette, I kind of talked at length about this in my all the makeup that I got this year video. And I'm not going to use this palette. I barely reach for it for this row specifically. I think that I have all of these colors elsewhere. It's just not a palette that inspires me. I love the packaging specifically, but I don't think I need this palette in my collection. So I'm going to declutter this one as well. Longing, probably one of my very favorite color stories in my collection. This palette is beautiful. This is a color story I love. These shades of purple and blue and green and very gray toned muted shades. These are my favorite type of colors like in real life, and so I love that they're in this very beautiful purple packaging. I love everything about this palette. This is Blend Bunny's good shimmer formula too, and again I love the way it's so aesthetically pleasing, how it's laid out. And this is how I do looks. I build it, you know, from medium to deep, and then, you know, blend it out with a light shade, add a shimmer on top. Like, this is so easy to do looks with. And yeah, I'm definitely keeping this one too. The Dollhouse, of course, I'm keeping. This is the penultimate, like, neutral but not neutral shades that I really love. As you see, like, you can see that this palette's had a lot of love from me. I haven't used it as much this year. Again, I didn't really wear makeup most of the first part of this year, and when I did, I was basically just reaching for the Electrum palettes that I have. And once I started buying things in the summer, I was trying new things, but this is something I know I would miss if it wasn't in my collection anymore, and so I'm going to keep it. The same thing with the Surge, mostly because you can't get this anymore, and I don't have other neons like these in my collection at all. I do actually like the shimmers in this one, specifically the shade Flash. I still reach for that as an inner corner occasionally. I do like it. And yeah, I am going to keep this one too. The Fills palette kind of cured me of wanting to get the Blends palette. This is the collab with Ellis Atlantis. This is a humongous palette. I bought this before I started buying stuff from C Beauty, specifically the Narimi palettes, and if I had realized I would be buying them, I probably would not have bought this, but c'est la vie, it is what it is. I love the shimmers here, and I do love how many color options there are, of course, in the gradient style, which is my favorite. This one's a little bit redundant probably with the other palettes I have in my collection, specifically the other Blend Bunny palettes I have, but I still really like this formula, and I'm going to keep this one too. So that is a keep so far of 21 and a declutter of 2.5. All right. Next we'll probably, let's do these ColourPop palettes because, I'm gonna keep these, yes, because they're Star Wars. So we have the Star Wars Original Mandalorian the Child palette. I haven't touched this, reached for this at all this year, but I'm still keeping it. Same with the C-3PO, this yellow gold tone. I'm never ever going to reach for these colors, but I'm going to keep this palette. I have reached for this Mandalorian, the Mandalorian palette. This is one of my favorite neutral palettes, and I've reached for it in conjunction with the Star Wars Darth Vader palette. Specifically, the neutral tones in this palette are some of my favorites, and over the Halloween season, I reached a lot for Sith Lord and Darkseid to kind of deepen up some looks that I did. So I am keeping these four for sure. Now, I don't know about this Star Wars, the original one, because I don't really care for this one, and I don't care for the formula, but these pans are too small for me to declutter and put, or to depot and put different eyeshadows in it. And I don't use this. I don't really, I love, okay, these shimmers are still stunningly beautiful though. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it. Okay, so this is the Diva Rune Cosmetics Dewdrops palette. I bought this one on a whim. I thought it would be a good companion palette for inner corner highlight. I hate this formula. I should have known that because I have the Diva Rune's like initial palette I'll get to in a little bit. I did a video about it. I really hated the matte formula and liked the shimmers fine, but I don't like the shimmers in this. I don't know, they are kind of shifty. I forget that I have this palette, and so I never reach for it, and I have prettier shimmer eyeshadows and better formulas that give me what I prefer, and so I'm going to declutter this palette. Then we have these ones from Gloss Gods. Now these two are my favorite, they're not going anywhere. So we have Gal on the Moon, which is 12 pans, and all of them are very shifty duos or multi-chromes. I haven't used this one this year, but I love it, so I'm going to keep it. I have used the Color of Rain this year. This is 11 multi-chromes and 1 matte black. I reach into this often to mix with my Electrum shimmers, specifically Water Prism and Drizzling are two that I'm always reaching for those two as an inner corner highlight or to put as a base to layer other shimmers, specifically again from Electrum on top of. I just really love this palette, so I'm also keeping it. And we have Gal on Jupiter, which I bought this year. This is their cool toned neutral palette, and as you can see, I've used the shimmers in this for a couple of looks, but I haven't used the mattes at all. So this is kind of a palette of shame. I haven't really tested it out all of that much, but I am going to keep it and just to see how I feel about it. And then this one is from Cosmic Brushes, or I believe it's Cosmic Beauty now. This is the Wonderland palette. I do not get along with Cosmic Beauty's formula. I had the other 3 palettes from them. I did videos last year. I decluttered them. I think I'm the only person in existence who just does not get down with this eyeshadow formula. I do love this color story though, and as you can see, I do use some of these, like specifically these 3 shades. I've used these shimmers. They're not horrible if you use this as a companion palette. It's not a palette I can make full looks with. These mattes do not blend together well, but if you just use one, it makes a good base for piling other shimmers on top of it. These shimmers are just very squishy. I don't know, they're not my favorite. It's not my favorite kind of shimmer formula. I just don't like it very much, but I'm going to keep this because again, I like this color story. So that is a keep of 30 so far and a declutter of 4. And we're going to move on to Okay, let's just do this. This is one that actually got recluttered to my collection. You'll see a couple of those that I've decluttered before and were gone for a long time. This is the Sleeping Beauty palette from Besame Cosmetics. This is like their Extremely Luxe, super special collector's edition. I've had pretty much everything from Besame until their Disney Villains collection. I did not buy anything from that collection. It's not because I don't like Besame, it's just because it's a very much collector's mentality that I'm trying to break. And I decluttered this palette to my sister, and she's decluttered it back to me. And I don't know, I used to really like this color story. I like the concept. I'm keeping this more as a showpiece, so this really isn't in my collection, I guess you could say. This is just a collector's item at this point. I really don't want to sell it. It's really old. I feel like that's strange. And I don't have anyone else in my life to give it to, so I'm just going to keep this because Sleeping Beauty is my favorite Disney princess. And I'm going to keep it and probably put it somewhere where I can showcase it so I can look at it myself. Alright, and then we have my Fairy Tale Fairies palette from Simply Posh. This is still to date the only palette I've ever used from Simply Posh, and I loved this color story. I still love this color story, but I haven't used this palette, and I have the same color story in so many other palettes, and so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to depot this palette because it's a magnetic palette, and these are singles, and I'm just going to use this as a magnetic palette and get rid of I don't like these two shimmers at all. Like this one hard panned almost immediately. I'm not going to use these two like pink shades or really even this one anymore. I might use some of these darker shades. I don't really like this formula the best. It's the color story I really enjoyed, and I don't know. I don't really use shades like this at the moment. So yeah, this is a declutter, but a declutter to depot. And then we have my Basic Witch palette. These are my three Bella Beauty Bar palettes, but these two aren't really. So here's Basic Witch. It is stunning, beautiful. I love this color story. I'm definitely keeping this palette. I've used this a couple of times this year, once recently, and the look that I can get out of these three green shades, stunning. Resting Witch Face, one of my very favorite like pink purple shimmers. I really like these purples. Coven is beautiful. I am a sucker for purples. I don't really get on the best with this top row, but I still like the concept of this very much, and this reminds me of the Lunar Beauty, the Witch palette from it. The very first one that Lunar Beauty did, that I did not buy it, and I really wanted to, but I didn't. And this color story reminds me a lot of it, and I like this formula a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna keep this one. Now, these two, if you've been around my channel ever before, you will know that I was going to depot these and do a video kind of combining the shades I was keeping and then give the other shades to a friend I have, but that friend actually bought the Strange and Unusual palette for themselves, so I did actually depot both palettes, and I was going to do a video and then I deleted the footage, so I'm not going to do that video, but I did Franken palette these. So these are a mixture of the Recently De-Influenced and the Strange and Unusual palettes, and this is my version of the palettes. As you can see, there were some kind of casualties. Mostly it was the mattes. It's very hard to depot mattes, but I did it, and I was able to not mess up the packaging that much on these ones. But yeah, I am going to keep the ones in the Recently De-Influenced. I love these shades. These are all ones that are beautiful. I have a harder time even parting with the get back in there. I have a harder time parting with these because while this isn't a color story I prefer, again, it's very warm, I just don't know that I have these colors in the rest of my collection. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this aside and go back through my collection at the end and see if I feel comfortable getting rid of these shades or if I have things that are comparable, because I'm not going to wear orange red tones very often, but I do want to have that option available to me in my collection. Like, what's the point of having a large collection if I can't do every kind of look I might want to do? And I have done a couple sunset looks with these shades specifically that were out of the Recently De-Influenced palette. So yeah, I'm going to set this aside into a maybe pile. Alright, so here we're going to do 3 of my Franken paletted palettes. So this is the Glaminatrix Cosmetics Nocturnal palette, and this has none of the original shades. This is a palette that I made myself, and I'm actually going to leave it like this. So a bunch of these shades are from Sydney Grace and Terra Moons, and I actually think a couple of these might be Glaminatrix shades as well. I'm really uncertain, and I'm not going to dig these out to look. As you can see, like, when you use and move around single shades, they kind of, you can have uh-oh accidents. And as you can see, I play around with my single shadows a lot, but I've decided I do use them better when they're in palettes, and so I'm going to kind of leave them like that. So this is 3 that I kind of did that with. So this is my Nocturnal palette, and I just feel like this is a better representation of what I would look for in kind of like a grungy, grimy palette. Same with the Cosmic Wanderer. This is from Terra Moons. I hated the original color story. I hated the formula of those shades. I did not like them. These, most of these are Sydney Grace from the Sydney Grace and Temptalia collab collection. And now a lot of these shimmers are Terra Moons. But I don't think any of these are Terra Moons matte shades. I think all of these are from the Sydney Grace and Temptalia collab palettes. Again, I'm not going to dig them out of here, but this is what I want in a Northern Lights Aurora Borealis themed palette. This is kind of what I'm looking for. I feel like this gives a basic, I can get any of those looks I wanted. I have used this a couple of times. Here's my cat who thinks he needs to be Nando. Sweet buddy. Yeah, you can't lay here. All right, and then we have the Diva Rune. I believe this was the Moth and the Moon palette. Yeah, the Moth and the Moon. And I redid this color story how I feel like it should be. Again, I think a lot of these are, now some of these are original from the Diva Rune palette. Like I think this matte and this one and this shimmer and maybe these 3 shimmers, maybe this one. Anyway. And then the rest of these, like this one's a Sydney Grace. I think this is a Terra Moons, this is Glaminatrix, Mermaid Scales or something like that. I think this is, I don't remember, because these are glued in here, because this was not a magnetic palette, and so I did glue these shades down in here. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this palette turned out. I haven't used it this year, but I did use it a couple of times the end of last year after I made it. And I'm really happy with how it came out. I do love the shimmer shades. If you're interested in my thoughts on the original Diva Rune palette, I have that video somewhere on my channel. And I like this. I like my version so much better. Okay, and so now I want to do the rest of the palettes I have from my Sea Beauty or Chinese Beauty shopping thing that I did this summer. And this is this beautiful paper outer packaging that I keep keeping from Shall We. This is the Somber Garden collab palette with Freya 86, I believe. Yes, Freya 86, Somber Garden. This is what she looks like. I really don't care for this formula. It's fine. I haven't really used the mattes in this palette, but I've used the shimmers. I've used these 2 mattes, I think. I do not care for this. I don't care for this. And I have these colors elsewhere. I do love the packaging, so I think I'm going to depot this and get rid of the shades I don't want and keep the magnetic palette and use it for my own palette, probably. So that makes a total of 7 decluttered so far. And then we have the sheen effect. I believe this is the Cyberpunk palette. I don't know. As you can see, it doesn't really say in English on here. I bought this palette because of the concept. I love this outer packaging. I thought this was the palette packaging, honestly, but it isn't. And this one's kind of plain. I kept this in here. This is just not a color story that I vibe with. It's fine. It's just very basic, boring. I don't really like the shimmer formula. It's fine, but these are typical indie, that kind of squishy formula they do for shimmers. And outside of this kind of duochrome, they're very basic. Very, very basic. Like, they're nothing special, I guess is what I'm saying, and I don't want to keep this, so I am going to declutter it. And pretty much the same with the DU Cosmetics. I think this is the Eye of the Universe. I bought this because I wanted to try out this brand, and I don't like this formula really at all. I do really like this center shade. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, so again, this is a magnetic palette though, so I'm going to depot this and keep the magnetic component and get rid of the singles I don't want. So yeah. Again, here we have some palettes that made it back into my collection. I decluttered these, and they were recluttered to me in a way. So this is the Bare Minerals Aurora Lights palette. This is an oldie from my collection. I actually panned 2 of these, and I had this one. It's super old, like super old. And I haven't used it, but I don't know. It has a place in nostalgia, so I might keep this, but like not in my collection. So this is a declutter. I'm not going to use this on my eyes. It's too old for that. And yeah, but I think I'm just going to keep it. It's just the nostalgia factor, and I feel like it has to mean something that it made its way back to me. And then the same with the Mermaid Lagoon. I swear, this is also from Besame, from their Peter Pan Mermaids collection. I decluttered this. It doesn't have the brush anymore. I decluttered this, and then it made its way back to me, and I'm just going to keep it, I think. And again, make it a display piece, because this is, I mean, the artwork on it is beautiful. This is Besame does packaging like nobody else. It's amazing. The Mercury Retrograde, again, is one I decluttered. It made it back to me, but I've actually used this a couple times this year, and I'm just going to keep it. I love this formula. It's made me really tempted to buy Huda Beauty. I've been looking at the Rose Quartz palette for forever, and then they came out with some icy, cool-toned palette that's kind of it's like a cooler tone, more neutral version of the Rose Quartz, and I really think I want to buy it because I do love Huda Beauty's The Big Palette formula, and I really do love this color story, and I love this palette, and I did regret decluttering it, so I'm going to keep it this time. Okay, I only have 5 here. Let me get this out of the way. I only have 5 Odin's Eye palettes left in my collection. At one point in time, I had every Odin's Eye palette. I have these ones. This is what I have left. I think I'm going to keep all of these for the same reasons I've been keeping these. These ones are just the best of the formula. So this is Schooled. This is the mini eyeshadow palette from the Norns collection. This is an all shimmer palette. These shimmers are they're very good. They're still very good. I've reached into this recently to use Fantasy as an inner corner highlight. I still keep loving this palette. Erd is my favorite green eyeshadow palette. I've used Luxury on my bottom lash line a few times in conjunction with one of the Narini palettes recently, and once with the Electrum Moth palette, Midnight Moth palette. This green is just killer. It's bomb. This formula just keeps kicking. I really think that the mini 6 pans, or the 5 pans with the split, these have the best formula of Odin's Eye, in my opinion. And then this is from the Elva 2 Mini Forest palette. I haven't reached for this one this year at all, but this is a color story I still really enjoy, and I want to keep it, so I'm going to. The Merry Christmas palettes, I was really disappointed in the Christmas release last year, and I was so looking forward to it. And this year is the same thing. Those are not Christmas palettes. Now, the Christmas Eve palette, this, magical. The Merry Christmas palette, also a Christmas dream. Like, these are, I don't know why they don't just keep bringing these back every Christmas season, like every holiday season. I think people would repurchase them and enjoy them. And I still really like these. I recently pulled these out. It's, you know, Christmas season now. And I have used both of them in a couple of looks in conjunction with some other palettes. I really love these. These are the best of Oden's Eye. It's really sad that you can't get these anymore though. I'm going to go through these real quick because this is from a brand that doesn't exist anymore. This is Muse Beauty. And I have not used these palettes since my last declutter. So it's been a long time. And I don't know that I will use them again, but I'm going to keep them because this brand doesn't exist anymore. And these are some of my very favorite concept palettes in my collection. So this is the Van Gogh. Beautiful. Triumph of Venus. This one I Franken paletted. These two shades are actually Terra Moon's shades, I believe. We have Les Jardins Volume 2. Again, Franken paletted. These are from the Pizza Kitty palette, I think from another brand that doesn't exist anymore. The original Les Jardins. Again, this is Franken paletted. I think 3 of these shades actually are from Kaleidos, the lavender palette. Then we have Art Nouveau, which I do need to reach back into this palette because this indigo shade Sensual is beautiful, stunning. And then the Rococo palette, which is another one I kind of Franken paletted. So these two shades are also from Kaleidos palettes, I believe. Yeah, I really love the concept of these more than anything. So I don't know, this declutter is not going well. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and go through my ColourPop. I'm keeping these little mini 4 pans. I don't keep these with my regular collection because I only use these when I travel. I do not take any other eyeshadow with me except for these when I'm traveling because I don't care if these get broken or not. Not even that, I mean, they are small and compact, but I don't care if they get broken, so I'm going to keep keeping these because of that reason alone. So we have this one, which is Crystal Clear Aquarius. Ooh, and that one is breaking. Not good. This one, which is Pisces in the Sky. Like a Virgo. Head Capricorn in Charge. Never Taurus Apart. And that's so weird because I actually say that Taurus, not Taurus, but An Emerald Away. Set on Sapphire. And Tender Loving Cancer. And I do think it's a shame that ColourPop doesn't seem to be making these anymore because, like, these are fire. These are probably the best formula that they've done. And these palettes are great. Okay, so this is my last Besame palette. This is the Marilyn Monroe. And I actually use this. This is actually a face and eye palette, and I use this as a face palette. I use this shade specifically, as you can see. Like, I use that in my eyebrows. When I do color my brows in, I reach for this. So that's what I use this for. I have used these other powders some. I don't really use them as much these days. I've been doing more like dewy makeup instead of powder makeup. But I'm gonna keep this. And then this is hard because I love Shroud and I love these palettes. It's Freakin' Bats is my favorite palette in my collection. As you can see, I have a huge pan and zero. I had one in Apparition, but I have since covered it back up by using my finger in the pan. But I actually ordered some stuff from Shroud, and this is the Halloween, and these are in collaboration with Batty Bean, or used to be Butte Bean. This is the Halloween palette. I actually ordered several palettes from them the end of last year and did not receive them for months and months. I think it was a big thing. This is Moonfall. And so I had to go through PayPal to get a chargeback. So I was very glad that I ordered through PayPal. But I had to do a chargeback, and I couldn't get the owner of the brand to respond to me. I tried several times. At one point, she told me that she was, you know, sick and kind of doing it alone and having a hard time answering emails. And so I just waited and waited and waited and said I wanted to cancel. I had made 2 different orders, one at Black Friday and one actually the beginning of November, end of October. And I never heard anything. So I did a chargeback through PayPal, and that was that. I don't really know that there's been anything heard of from the brand since then, which is, I don't know, like I wish the brand well. I do think that it's obvious that there was something going on in their personal life. It's just very kind of disappointing to me because I love Shroud, but I do still love these palettes, and so I'm going to keep them. Now, these are 3 of my Sydney Grace and Temptalia palettes, but these are color stories I made myself. I actually made these in a video almost 2 years ago at this point, and I have used them, and I've really liked using them, so I think I'm going to leave them as these color stories, to be honest. I based them off of book covers, and I really like them. I've only used one of these so far this year, but again, I don't want to keep moving my single shadows around, and as you can see, like, they do not like being moved around a whole lot, like over and over and over again, like building your own palette style. They're just, you know, indie shadows can be very fragile sometimes. So I'm gonna leave them like this. I really like this. I still feel very inspired by this color story, all 3 of these color stories, so I'm gonna leave those 3 as they are, which means I'm counting them in my eyeshadow palette collection. And then we have these from Wicked Widow Beauty. This is the Edward Scissorhands 2 palette. I saw somebody do a couple looks with this palette, really liked their looks, bought it for myself, and I haven't reached for this one time since the last time I used it last year, which I believe was Christmas time of last year, so that's a full year. And this is the Resurrection palette. I was really excited about this, but I feel like the Fills palette from Lynn Bunny kind of fills the void this would have opened. Now, these are duochromes, and I do really like this, but I'm going to give this to my sister. I haven't touched this again since the video I did the end of last year, and I really think my sister will love this one. So I am going to declutter both of the Wicked Widow Beauty palettes that I have. And I believe that brings the declutter up to 13 so far. So this is my last remaining Glamlight palette. This is the Rick and Morty 30 shade mega huge palette. I'm decluttering this. I do not like the shimmers in this. And while I do feel like the matte shades are workable and fairly unique colors, I have other shades that probably dupe these in all of the other palettes I have, specifically from Narimi and Blend Bunny. So I'm just going to declutter this. Again, I think my sister will love this. Alrighty, here is my Pat McGrath palettes. I'm not getting rid of these. I did not spend full price on these. I wouldn't recommend spending full price on these. They're definitely not worth that. But I use these when I do makeup on other people a ton. And so while I have not used these on myself this year, I have used these on several other people. So this is the Moonlit Seduction. This shimmer is absolutely stunning. I think that you can probably find something similar elsewhere. And again, I would never pay full price for one of these palettes. They just are not worth it. And then I have this one, which is the Rose Divine. This is my very favorite shimmer shade, but have I used it this year? No, I haven't, because I have other things that are better than it now. This is the, what is this one? Midnight something. Anyway. And then that means this one is the Mothership one. I think that means this is the Sublime or Subliminal. I don't remember. This is the Mothership one. I do know that though. And yeah, that one looks like that. And again, I'm keeping all 4 of these. I spent too much money on them not to keep them. And I do, these are what I use on other people. So they are good for something. Okay, and this is a decision I have labored over. I have not used these palettes this year. I no longer support Inslee Rain, so this is the Flower Moon, the original one, and the Midwinter Dream. So my Flower Moon did not look the same as they do now because they had 3 green shades that were basically the same thing, and I got rid of those in another shade. And these are actually from Cleona, so these were Cleona singles. I Franken paletted into this. All of these greens have the exact same duochrome flip to them, which means on the eye it's essentially the same shade, kind of the same with a bunch of these like purpley and pink shades. It's just a bunch of same, and I paid like $80 for this palette. And I no longer support Inslee Rain because they use AI. I think AI is unethical. If you think differently, that's fine. But I am somebody who has several people who are artists in my life that have literally lost so much of their business in the last few years because of AI art becoming so popular. So AI does harm real people. It does harm artists. It is theft from artwork that the original artists did not consent to let AI programs use. But also, my biggest thing is Inslee Rain. So I am decluttering both of these palettes, to be clear. I'm decluttering them. And the Midwinter Dream is my very favorite color story in my collection. I just cannot bring myself to use it. So the collab, I believe it was Brittany Huffman. Yeah, Brittany Huffman and Inslee Rain. The original collaborator was not paid for this collab that they did. And was treated very poorly by the brand. Now, again, this is all alleged. But I found enough things online, if you're curious, you can look that up yourself, that kind of supported those claims. And the creator, Brittany Huffman, did delete everything that they have done with Inslee Rain off of their account, at least at the time I was looking. And they were not paid by Inslee Rain, but they were offered store credit instead for this collab that they did. And anyway, it's just, I cannot support a brand that would treat their collaborator like that. That is just horrible. Because if they would treat someone they liked enough to do a whole collection collaboration with, how are they going to treat other people? Like, you would think that they would have more of a reason to have a close relationship with a collaborator than really anyone else. But I think that is so horribly unethical, and the AI alone would be reason enough, but it just kind of seals the deal that I can't keep anything from Inslee Rain. You know, there are other brands that I find a little bit problematic, and I still keep their stuff, like Terra Moons. I will never buy anything from Terra Moons again, but I'm going to keep everything I have from them. However, the same is not going to be said of Inslee Rain. I'm going to get rid of these palettes. I don't know. I can't, I feel guilty using them, and maybe that's silly. It is just makeup, but I paid too much money on these to not be able to have joy using them. So I am going to probably give these to my sister as well. Okay, so I think that brings the count of Declutter to 17, and I'm keeping 66. I may have miscounted, and I did decide to go ahead and get rid of my Franken paletted Strange and Unusual from Bella Beauty Bar. Again, these are combined shades from the recently de-influenced and the Strange and Unusual palettes. And I kind of have similar shades in other palettes. Enough so that if I really feel like making a look with these shades, I can find those elsewhere. So yeah. And again, some of these palettes I'm just depotting, like the Somber Garden. A couple of them are like I'm keeping, but they're not going to stay in my collection. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was enlightening to you. I hope it has inspired you to maybe go through your collection and see what you're using. what you're not, what you want to keep, what you don't, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.